Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. Today we're taking a look at Outcast, A New Beginning on the Steam Deck. This is a sci-fi open-world action game that launched last year, and it's surprisingly good in terms of story and gameplay. It has a beautiful open world, but the question is, how well does it actually run on the Steam Deck? Let's find out. So Outcast: A New Beginning is a third-person open-world shooter with jetpack traversal, sci-fi weaponry, and a deeply alien world packed with lore and exploration. You play as Cutter Slate, which is a wisecracking ex-Navy SEAL pulled into an alien world called Adelpha, tasked with helping its native inhabitants fight back against robotic invaders. Gameplay blends fast-paced combat, resource gathering, crafting, and vertical exploration with the help of that jetpack. Think Far Cry meets Jet Force Gemini, but with double jumps, hover packs, and laser rifles. What sets it apart is the sense of movement and freedom, and the game lets you explore at your own pace. You can interact with local tribes, unlock weapon and item upgrades, and this game is technically a sequel to the original Outcast game, but at the same time, it's kind of a reboot. It's best treated as a standalone title. Now, before I jump into performance on the Steam Deck, if you're new here, please don't forget to follow the SteamFlow Curator page on Steam and my Steam group. I will link those in the description. Every game I test on the Steam Deck, I also make a written review and I post it there. And my reviews are usually oriented towards the best settings for the best possible experience on the Steam Deck. I would really appreciate it if you followed me there. Now, performance on the Steam Deck right out of the bat is not great. First of all, this is kind of shocking, but this is a 2024 game that doesn't feature any type of upscaling technology. So there's no FSR or no XeSS, no TAA, no TSR, no DOSS, nothing. So you're pretty much stuck with the native resolution, and on the lowest settings you're looking at around 40 FPS, but with dips to even 20 FPS sometimes. Unfortunately, we can't really go above the lowest settings, but we can do some things to try and stabilize the performance, and it is pretty playable with a 30 FPS cap. That's how I ended up playing it. Now, if you play Uncapped, you're seeing between 30 and 40, and that gives you a little bit of a buffer for when the spikes hit, so that you don't drop all the way to 20, but it is a little bit unstable, so I prefer to cap it to 30. Battery life is 2 hours and 30 minutes, even at 30 FPS, so it doesn't get you more battery life when you cap it. Make sure to actually cap it to 30 FPS through the game, however. The game has an option to cap it in the settings menu. Don't do it via the Steam Deck slider, because if you do it via the Steam Deck, you will introduce a little bit more input lag. If you do it via the game, it's a little bit better for the input lag. Now, there is no option for 800p, but the game does support 16:10 aspect ratio, so it is running in 720p, but it is properly stretched on the screen. There is some weird fuzziness around characters that kind of makes it look like it's using FSR, but I can promise you it's not. Now, I did try to put textures to medium, view distance to medium, and player cap, and it will usually run between 30 and 40 FPS, but it is inconsistent. In smaller areas or indoors, it will be closer to 35, 40, but in areas with a lot of vegetation or a lot of on-screen effects or a lot of characters, it will dip to 30 and even below that. So it is not recommended. Just stick with the lowest settings, cap it at 30, and that's going to be the best experience. Now, when you watch the game, it asks you to either watch it in DirectX 11 or DirectX 12. There is minimal difference between both, but I found that in my particular case, it runs a little bit better on DirectX 11. It just seems that they were less stuttering with DirectX 11. The game also features an FOV slider, and by default, that's set to 70. I've put mine to 75, which draws the camera a little bit further back and maybe takes 1-2 FPS and lowers the performance. But if you cap it to 30 FPS, it should be pretty stable. Even in combat, the FPS hovers around 30, but the game features a lot of cinematics, and in between the cinematics, there is gameplay footage that you can skip, so it's not technically a cinematic, but sometimes that would lag out, and I would see it drop to even 10 FPS. This is probably something that will be fixed the more you play the game and the more shaders are loaded, but it's something to keep in mind. Now, the game features full controller support, and menus and buttons are pretty intuitive. However, in some of the menus, when you have to navigate to parts of the map or you have to upgrade your weapons and jetpack, you will be forced to use the analog stick as a mouse. which can be a little bit weird, but I really didn't find that to be a big issue. I think the game is otherwise great. The combat is actually pretty good. There is some aim assist present in the game, and it makes it more enjoyable on the Steam Deck, at least for me. However, I do wish that they had some sort of upscaling. I think with some upscaling technology, we could have easily gotten this to 45 FPS, even on medium settings, and it would have been a lot better. But even at these low settings, then with a 30 FPS cap, I think the game is still worth checking it out on the Steam Deck. The open world is pretty well designed, a surprisingly good game that hits the nostalgia button while still feeling modern. It's not AAA, but it has charm and it runs decently enough on the Steam Deck. That's gonna be it for this video. If you guys found it helpful, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe for more Steam Deck content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.